This is Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast sharing tips on raising amazing teenagers. We are both certified life coaches that have worked with teenagers as coaches, mentors, and teachers. We are sharing what we found to work when dealing with teens and tough issues. This is episode 4 of Let's Talk Teens with Cheree and Abbi, how to help your teen push through big emotions.
I love it. Oh man, isn't it crazy how sometimes those big emotions really do cripple us no matter what age we are in life? It's like, I'm feeling something really intense right now and I just want to shut down. I want to crawl back in my bed. I want to hide from the world. I just don't even want to show up.
Oh, I think about how I experience that every time I've signed myself up to do something new, like maybe a new workout class or a new community thing or going out with friends. And then in the moment, I'm like, I changed my mind. I don't want to do this. But then you go and you have a great time. And I was thinking, Cheree, one time I was coaching a beautiful teen girl. She was so fun and so amazing. And she hadn't been to school in months. And her parents had hired me to help her go to school. And I remember thinking, I don't know how to do that. And it was amazing to me that how this happened, how this girl who's really great in academics, she loves her friends. She even said she likes school. But she just said, I just would get so anxious and I just wouldn't feel like going and my parents would let me stay home. And I thought about that a lot because I thought, oh, how sad that parents allowed a teenager's emotions to influence them to not make the right choice when it came to we got to go to school, right? There's a legal obligation there. And I think often that sometimes we can forget that our role is not only, yes, we got to feel these emotions because like you say, we're not robots. I love you have this quote. We didn't sign up for the robot plan. And I love that. Um, but we can't let these emotions rule us because these emotions, even though, I love myself, I love all these experiences that I get to have as a human being. But if I let my emotions rule me, I like to call it my natural man self, I wouldn't make the best choices. That's the part of me that wants to stay in bed all day. That's the part of me that doesn't want to talk to new people or put myself out there. That's the part of me that doesn't want to work hard, right? And all of us have that as human beings. And that's not a bad part of me. That's the part of me that wants to keep me alive and safe and have energy. But I can't allow that part of me to win. And as a teenager, that self-discipline is really hard. So I feel like as parents, we got to be that extra set of boundaries, that extra little push to help them power through some of these really big emotions.
Exactly. And I think sometimes in our mind, we equate that to, okay, to help them power through, they have to be okay with it. And one of the things I would just say is it's okay for you to hate feeling this way. It's okay for you to loathe feeling anxious and just loathe it, just hate it. I hate feeling anxious. And I know I can go be brave at the same time. Maybe I'm going to add some courage to that anxiety. And I know that if I show up, it's going to be better than I think it is. But I hate feeling this way. And of course, I want to stay home and be in bed. And I also want to grow and experience things and hang out with my friends. And so I'm going to, you know, let myself feel anxious and add a little bit of courage and go show up. And let's talk about some of those ways that we can, that, teen parents can help their teens do just that.
Yes. So if you feel like your teenager or child really has a tendency to lean towards feeling socially anxious or depressed or some of these really big emotions that a lot of us in the world are experiencing right now, here are some really practical ways that I love to start with a teenager of rebuilding that muscle inside themselves that says, I can do this, right? When I even say that muscle, it's really that thought pattern of I can do this. I've got this. And I can be both feeling anxious and brave because they actually kind of feel the same. So, some things I like to coach my teens on is that they need to make their own appointments. So, when it comes to doctors, hair appointments, um, like school counselors, talking to teachers, that needs to be done by your teenager. And yes, mom and dad, I totally know that that's going to require more work on you up front. You're going to need to literally give them a card that has the number, the name of the doctor they need to call, what they need to ask, and even coaching them through it on the sidelines. But this simple exercise of having your teen talk on the phone to another human being is a perfect one of like entry level anxiety, I call it, right? Of, okay, I got to talk to somebody new. They're going to ask me questions. And these are all adulting skills that we also want to build. So if you feel like your child's kind of wanting to shrink back into some of those feelings of like anxiety, have them start to make their own appointments, have them start to order their own food at a restaurant. Cheree, do you have any thoughts on that or practical things that you've seen work?
Oh, I love that. I think that's such a good idea. And with that, like with having them make those appointments, give them permission to be bad at it at first. Like be like, and you're not going to be an expert at this. You might fumble over it, and that's okay. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. We're going to practice getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Like this is going to feel like you're going to feel a lot of emotions. You're going to feel a little panicky and a little insecure and a little scared and a little nervous. And you're going to, maybe the brain's going to be all dramatic about how that's going to go, and it probably will go better than you think, and it might go worse than you think, and you might even feel embarrassment, and like all of that is in that, like you said, practicing getting better at this, practicing letting that emotion still be there, and calling and getting again, letting them get uncomfortable, letting them feel uncomfortable, and getting comfortable with that. I think it's so good, so good.
I even think that as a former high school teacher, parents were too involved with helping their student like with missing assignments, with bad grades, with trying to like bring up their report. And don't get me wrong, I think a parent should have their pulse on a child's grade, like for sure. Know what they're doing, how they're doing at school and all those things. But I was shocked how often it would be the parent that would come to me and say, okay, my child was gone on Friday. Like, what did they miss? Or how can they make up for this test? And that needs to be a conversation that that student is having with me. Because again, an adulting skill of how do I talk to a superior? How do I talk to somebody that, like a boss, a teacher, right? That has control over my grade, my life, my shifts. So allowing your child to do that. Granted, it's going to take some coaching on your part. It's going to take some, no, you really got to call them, right? As they're like, Mom, you just do it. Just help me out. But these are all really great ways we're just helping our teens stretch those independence muscles, but also powering through those big emotions. And I think this is silly to admit, but even as an adult, like when I'm on the phone with somebody and it's a woman, I feel more comfortable, right? And sometimes when it's a man, I'm like, oh man, I'm not as comfortable. And isn't it funny that we just have these, I don't know, insecurities that sometimes can pop up that we just got to power through and we every time get a little bit better at it.
It's so true. As you're talking, I was thinking, I think as adults, we want to fix it for them. But why do we want to fix it? It's because we're feeling our own emotions that we don't like to feel. We feel uncomfortable because they feel uncomfortable. And, we're feeling all of our own emotions of, oh, I must be doing this wrong as a parent if I'm making them do this. Or, we're feeling fear like, oh, is this going to put them over the edge? And so we're so quick to take away these opportunities from them because we're feeling our own emotion instead of being to our very own self, like, okay, sure, you can feel fear about how this is going to go for your child and still allow them to feel uncomfortable. Like we're going to all feel uncomfortable in this situation. We're letting them learn. It's uncomfortable for us, adults and parents, and it's uncomfortable for them. Okay, I had this super cute client that in college, she's in college, and she was struggling with a lot of social anxiety. She found herself just wanting to stay home in her apartment and not go out because of how she felt. She felt just so much anxiety every time she would go out. So one of the ways that she practiced using that muscle to overcome the anxiety or to push through something, even though she felt anxious, was we just set this up that she would just set a 15-minute timer on her watch, and she would give herself permission to just go for 15 minutes. And she would go knowing that while in that 15 minutes, she would feel anxious, she'd feel nervous, she might feel inadequate, she might feel insecure, she might feel we just named all the emotions she might feel in that 15 minutes. And just to tell herself, I can do anything for 15 minutes. I can feel these emotions and show up for this pickleball event or this party or whatever for 15 minutes. And then she'd give herself permission that in 15 minutes, if she was just, it was more than she could handle, she could go home, she could leave. And she said she was so shocked that it would get to the 15 minutes and her watch would go off and she was fine. She was fine. And she was so glad that she gave herself permission to leave after that 15 minutes because it allowed her to be there long enough for the anxiety to calm down, for all the emotions to calm down, and for her to have a really great time. And then it just got better and better. Every time she went, she's like, yeah, it's going to feel uncomfortable for a little bit. Of course, my brain's going to tell me this story before I go, that this is going to be awkward and uncomfortable. And I'm just going to let all that be there for 15 minutes. And then if it doesn't go away, I'll come home. And if it goes away, I can have a good time. And it was crazy how much that changed for her.
What's funny is that's a similar approach that I took to my client who wasn't going to school, right? I said, well, let's just go to first period. And it's amazing that when you can get yourself to go to first period, right? Because that's the hardest part, getting out of bed, getting ready. She was like, oh, it was fine. I just stayed. I hung out with my friends, And so it's amazing that if we can just help be that factor that gets them out the door, that gets them to the event, that gets them in a step in the right direction, that those big emotions really start to subside. They really start to get back into place. And I think it's amazing that anxiety dies the moment that you start to take action. And that's when anxiety really thrives, is when you're stuck doing nothing, right? Because there's no solution. There's no steps that we can take, and our brain just spins and spins and spins. But if I can help my teenager take action, even if it's going for 15 minutes or talking them through it or making that phone call, it helps take away all that spinning, because now we're just focused on an action. And it's amazing that, wow, these emotions they're not going to kill me.
Yep, they aren't. And they don't cripple us when we say, okay, it's okay. I don't like it, right? We're going to go back to like, I hate feeling anxious and nothing has gone wrong. It's normal. I feel this way and I can feel this way and go do this thing, go to school, go to a party, go hang out with my friends. And I'm going to probably feel these emotions and I'm just going to kind of expect them to be with me. They're going to be there. And I just say all the time, and maybe you say this too, Abby, is like, we make friends with our feelings. We like, okay, hey, anxiety, you're here today. Yeah, I'm very familiar with you. Come on, come along. Let's go.
Come hang out. Come grab a slice of pizza. Like, let's go.
I'm going out with the friends. You can come along too. I don't really like you. You're not my favorite friend, but you know what? You keep showing up, so I'm going to drag you along. Let's go. Let's go.
And I guess one of the last things I want to say with just this thought of, okay, what are some practical ways of moving my team forward? I always in coaching talk about, what does your future self wish you did? Like, what is your future self who is hanging out with friends, who has rebuilt these friendships? I'm thinking of a client that I had a while ago where she said, these friendships, for some reason, it feels like we're not as close and I just don't want to hang out. And I said, well, okay, if we don't hang out with them, that's only going to perpetuate that. The friendship feels even more weird and awkward when we hang out. And I said, I know it's going to be awkward when you hang out with them because, like you said, there's some beef, there's some issues that you're working through, but your future self would thank you for doing that. Your future self that's surrounded with your friends and everything is back to normal has to live through this part that's really awkward. And so I'm always reminding my teen clients, like, hey, what is your future self telling you? What would your future self be so grateful that you did right now? And it's always like, well, they'd be really grateful if I got good grades, or if I did this hard thing, or if I talked to these friends who I have beef with. And so that's another way that you can help, is just get your teen a little bit focused on that future version of them that isn't afraid, that is more confident, that has the thing that they're after, whether that's they're happier or they have better grades or they have better relationships with their siblings. What would they be doing right now?
Oh, Abby, you're so spot on. I love that so much. Great, great thoughts.
Okay, well, we hope that these tips help you out and that you'll join us in our next podcast episode. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Teens, a parenting podcast to help you raise amazing teens. If you're looking for more help and tips on your teenager, visit Cheree on Instagram at Cheree Murdock Coaching, or you can find her on her website, ChereeMurdock.com. You can find Abbi on Instagram as Abbi Winslow or on her website, abbywinslow.com. Please subscribe and rate our podcast and share with a fellow parent that you think would love this episode.